start at the beginning.
Where you want me to start whenever I got out of high school, or?
Unless you want to start further back.
that might be the best place to start. Ready?
Yes, sir.
My name's Ron Huff. Graduated in June of 1963. As a young man, back then you had about 3 choices in life. You either got married or on a higher education. 9 chances out of 10 you're going to be drafted. August of that year I signed up for the draft. I was 18 then. Debating which side of the military to go in. Didn't want to go by myself. So I happened to run into couple buddies of mine. So we're going to the Navy. So I went into the recruiter and they offered me an A school, a little education. Said, well, I got to start somewhere in life, so this might be a good start for me. I didn't want to go to college or anything, didn't like the books that well. So I signed up for the Navy. And so September of 1963, I enlisted in the Navy, went to Great Lakes, Illinois. And the most dramatic experience of my life, I was at Great Lakes, going through boot camp, boom, boom, every day, right after one day after the other. President Kennedy was assassinated. At that time, young man, I had no idea what was going on in the world. They took our troop back to our barracks. We packed our sea bags and we was ready to ship out in 48 hours. That's what we were told. Didn't know what was going to happen to us, had no idea. Still had 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 weeks of boot camp yet. So after about 2 days, they secured all that. We went back to the normal reality. Got out of boot camp, come home on leave for 15 days. Right after Christmas of that year, I was right back to the lakes for diesel A school. So I studied marine diesels there for 3 months. And they had a dream sheet. You could pick out what coast you wanted to be on, what kind of a ship you'd like to be stationed on, and what port. Well, you never get any of that. I got the coast and that was about all. I got stationed on a salvage rescue ship, which is about the size of what they call a fleet tug. 84 men on it. Our main job was amphibious landings, pulling LSTs off the beaches. We carried 14 divers for emergency salvage operations. And we had a 4-man decompression chamber on the ship. My first cruise, we pulled out. I was only under about a month or 2, and we pulled out in June and went to Canada. Off the coast of Canada, we were towing an underwater torpedo, taking information for whatever was going on. They wouldn't tell us. Come home, got about a month in port we were in, got to go home a couple of times. Then we went back to Canada again middle of June. Come back in August, in port for about another month, and we loaded up to go overseas. We was in a task force and left Norfolk. There was a repair ship, an LST, a refueler, and a couple ATFs, which is fleet tugs. We were in a task force, and young man, only 18 years old, I'd never seen anything before, and there I am out in the middle of the ocean. So we got over there and we pulled into Scotland. Holy Loch, Scotland was a big submarine base at the time. We got Liberty there, and people talking Scottish, I thought that was English, but it ain't English. I got my eyes opened up to the world, what it really is. Left there and went to Ireland. Was there for a couple of weeks, and then we pulled down into Portugal, and then into France, and then we ended up off the coast of Spain. They had not told us what we were going to do yet, but we ended up off the coast of Spain, and here was an amphibious landing. It was supposed to be the biggest amphibious landing since D-Day. As a young man, I I got up early in the morning, went out in the fantail of the ship. We were off the coast of Spain. There was more ships than I could count. I just couldn't even believe it. I said, where'd all the ships come from? There was 4 carriers, troop transports, supply ships, destroyers, and then the next day, they started an amphibious landing, and I got to see it live. You see all them guys coming off the ships, climbing down, they get on the Higgins boat, circling, and then they're heading into the beaches. And it was, I mean, there's something that you see on TV, but I got to see it live. As a young man, that was more than I could ever imagine even seeing. While we were there, we was ready to pull out to go home. And the Navy had a plane that dropped a bomb off the coast of Spain. So we were pulled in because we had divers in there, sending divers down to pick the bomb up that had been dropped. Not knowing till about 20 years later when the movie came out, Men of Honor, they had dropped a nuclear bomb. They never told us that. And that gentleman who lost his leg in the movie was on the USS Hoist, ARS 41. That was our sister ship. I was on the USS Recovery, ARS 43. So they pulled us off the job. We headed back to Norfolk. Partway coming home, we were in a pretty bad storm in another task force. An LST got the door ripped off the front of the LST. So they had to pull a tow in. They were going to tow it into Bermuda. We were picked to tow it in. We was all wanting to go home. So the captain pulled rank, and they put an ATF on a fleet tug, ended up pulling it into port, and we come on home. And that was my first big cruise overseas. Well, what a life experience and growing up I went through. From a young man that never been anywhere to seeing part of the world. You know, I joined the Navy to see the world, but they didn't tell me 80% was water. And I think I seen mostly all of it. Well, I was home for Christmas that year, and we pulled out early in January down to the Caribbean. And we pulled into San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was my first time ever in that country. We had a little bit of liberty there, and then we pulled out of there and we went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And our main job was pulling targets for the fleet to shoot at. We was on a shakedown cruise for the fleet. So we had these targets behind the ship, probably about a half a mile behind us, on a sled, and they were shooting live ammo. And it's something you're there. You don't understand it till you actually feel it and see it. So we did that for we was there off and on for about a month. And they pulled us back out of there. We come back into Norfolk, went into the yards for about 2 months. Refitted, reclassified, different equipment on the ship, more modernization. Come out of the yards, and we went up down to the Caribbean on a shakedown cruise. Ended up going to Puerto Rico. We picked up a tow down there, and we towed a barge from Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico into Orange, Texas. From Orange, Texas, we got liberty and went to New Orleans. And I thought New Orleans was along the coast. After 6 hours upriver, we finally pulled into New Orleans. And I'm not going to tell you any of the stories about New Orleans, because back then it was a different place than it is today. Well, when that all happened, they had sunk a floating dry dock in the Charleston River for submarines. So we got pulled off and went down to Charleston with another fleet tug and divers. We had divers down there. There was 3 men killed on that. They got the bodies off and moved the cranes and lashed stuff down. We had divers go down and put airbags in, and we pumped air in there for about a day and a half. Then they started pumping water out of it, and we surfaced that. And that was that right after Thanksgiving. We come home for Christmas. After Christmas, we got assigned to the North Atlantic for a year. They painted all the numbers off our ship. no identification, no flags, and they would not tell us what we were doing. Went into North Atlantic with a cable layer. We'd see it every 3 days. We'd send divers down to check the splice that they'd made in the cable. After the cable was checked to be okay, we'd bring the divers back on and sail away again. At that time, that was my longest time at sea, no land. That was 43 days. We had not been in port for anything. Finally, they had to pull us into Iceland to take on fuel. We took on fuel, and that was my first time in Iceland. A nice country, but there was nothing there. All it was there was a radar base where we were at. We left there and went to St. John's, Newfoundland to take on more supplies. And then we worked the cable layer some more, and we got pulled off of that. And every 3 months they would change our job with this cable layer. It's a different ship on it the whole time. It was all classified. To this day, I don't even know what we did. They would never tell us. And kind of towards the end of my career, I'd volunteered for NOM. They were crying for diesel mechanics for riverboat patrol. So finally, my orders come through in February. They come down, they said, well, you got your orders, got patrol boat duty in the Nang River on a swift boat. At that time, I didn't want to go then. But when you volunteer, you go wherever they send you. So I was kind of fretting over it all, but I said, I'm going. Well, then they come down and told me, my division officer said, well, Ron, you got two choices, either extend for 6 months or ship over because you don't have enough time left. They won't send you. You have to have at least a year left time you get back. They have to declass or send you to, I had to go to school before I went over, and plus I had to have leave, and then I had to have time to go to get ready to get discharged. It took you about at least 2 weeks. So they canceled all that. In the meantime, my division officer was trying to talk me into staying in. I was an E5 at the time and took a test for E6. And I liked the job I had, but I wanted to have a family. And not being at home and in the port all the time, most of my time was at sea. And I said, I want to get out. I want to have a family. Well, they offered me $4,200 bonus pay because I was a diesel mechanic. It was a critical rate at the time. If I would stay for 6 years. And at that time, I thought about it. I said, I could buy a new car for $1,800. But I said, I want to have a family. So I got out of the Navy then. And my last cruise, I got to go to the World's Fair in Montreal in 1967. In September, I made our last cruise there. Went down the St. Lawrence Seaway into Montreal. After that, we come back to Norfolk. I left the ship and went to main base for discharge. Physical, shipping over lecture, VA lecture, and what qualified you for VA and stuff. And what my future was as far as the schooling and stuff like that, I could get through the VA. So that was pretty much my career in the Navy. Glad I did it. Glad I had a chance to do it. And I'd do it again if I had a chance. Back then, I had a girlfriend and she was wanting me to get married. Well, I said to myself, the Navy's only 4 years, that's for life, and I wasn't ready for it. So I went in the Navy. Down the road, we split up. So, it all come out for the good in the long run. It was hard with the time, but the worst thing is to get a Dear John letter in your service. Everybody laughs and talks about it, but it's you. And you're a kid about 18, 19 years old. You just don't walk over and throw your arm around your buddy and start crying. You're a macho man. You're tough. You ain't allowed to do that. You still have feelings. You got to hold them inside. So it's a lot harder sometimes. Some guys handle it and some guys don't. But it's a tough time, and you have to live through it. You had to be there and have it happen to you to understand it better. But I was glad that it worked out better for me in the long run. Met my wife, and before I got out, I mean, she was younger than me, but started dating her about a year before I got out of the Navy, and we had 53 years together before she passed. And we have 5 great kids. So it all come out in the plus side for me. You gotta look at the bright side of life. Don't ever get down on yourself. It's easy to get down there, but it's harder to get back up, because I've been there. So always think positive, and that guy upstairs got a reason for us. You may not think it's there for a reason, but he's doing stuff for us. And he's got a direction for you. And just think positive about life. A few years back, I got involved over at Newcastle. A friend of mine asked me if I would go over. They were doing a ceremony over there for the dog tag tree. I didn't know what the dog tag tree was, but they had started us in Newcastle, Cascade Park. They had a tree put in there, made metal tree, and it was survivors from Vietnam that had died from Agent Orange. So they had a ceremony and they would hang the dog or announce their names. The family would go up and hang their dog tags on a tree. If you ever have a chance, make sure you stop and see that. It's worth seeing. It's another little thing that the Vietnam veterans had to suffer with. Coming back from Vietnam, which I didn't have to, but I still suffered from the retaliation the American people had against the veterans. The veterans don't start wars, politicians do. And veterans got to fight them. And we, as veterans, had to take the blame for it all. And retaliation, the American public was blaming the veterans for the Vietnam War. But since that's all come around, like the dog tag tree and people saying thank you, dang it, it makes me feel good inside that people care. They're not just saying to say thank you. You can tell when somebody says thank you how they feel. And I always tell them back, thank you for caring, because that means a lot to me. And it does to every veteran from this era, because so many of them suffered that didn't need to suffer. We didn't have no ticker tape parades or people waving flags when we come home. So that was a big change in our country. It's going back the other way right now. People are starting to care more, and I'm glad to see it. So this trip come up to go to D.C., and I was asked if I would like to go, and I said, wow, I would love to go. So Wizard called me, and he said, we're going to put wreaths at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Can you walk up 21 steps? I said, yes, I can. He said, well, we can put your name in. It'll be a drawing. And if you're picked, you get to go put the wreath at the tomb of the unknown. So about a month later, he called me and he said, you're the second name picked. And I said, wow, what an honor in life. That's one of the little things that you just never expect is going to happen to you. But when it does, wow, what a feeling you get. I get to get down and do something that I just couldn't believe that I ever do something like that in my life. It is one of the honors in life that it just overwhelmed me. The feeling just to be able to do that. And I'll probably have a feeling down there different. I don't know how some of the other veterans feel, but Memorial Day, when I walk down Main Street with my dress whites on, carrying the American flag, I don't care if it's 90 degrees outside, I got goosebumps. I feel the pride. And when the people start clapping, I really get the goosebumps then, to know the feeling that they care. Well, I left some stuff out there, some stuff that I did that I'm not proud of. But I was 18 years old, 19 years old, a young man growing up, never been anywhere, never seen nothing. Grew up in a little small town, went to a small school. My father's trip before I went to service was Pittsburgh down to Kennywood. So I never was anywhere till I got into service. So I got a little bit wild, drank a little too much alcohol, and was young and dumb. But who wasn't? None of us were perfect. They haven't made anybody perfect yet. They made one perfect person and he's gone. He's up there waiting on us. I am the veterans chairman for the state of Pennsylvania for the Moose Association. So I get to do the flags at the conventions. I'm involved right now putting burial flags at the veterans centers for people that's blind. I served 2 years as commander of the American Legion in Chicora, and I'm still active on the memorial squad that we go to honor deceased veterans and do service for them. We generally, right now this time of year, we're picking up maybe 1 or 2 a week. So I do that. I'm also, I don't do it as active as I used to, but I was still involved a little bit with the Boy Scouts. I had over 40 years of the Boy Scouts. And while I was involved with the Boy Scouts, cemetery in Chicora, the veterans were doing. And this had to be back in the 80s, 70s or 80s. And I said, these guys were World War II veterans, getting older. I said, let's get the kids involved with this. So we got the Boy Scouts to come in. Now they do it. They get to take care of putting the flags on the veterans. And it's a way for them kids to realize that these people are buried here, give their lives for us, a chance that they could have been killed where they were at. So it's a little like a respect, and I try to get that in the kids' heads. Also, with being in the Boy Scouts, I got them to do for a service project, they do a flag retirement ceremony, the Flag Day every year, June 14th, have a ceremony at Chicora Park, and the boys take care of retiring American flags with a nice ceremony. And that's what we got to do with our youth today. Take a little time to show these kids that freedom is not free. And a lot of people give up a lot of their time and lives to make it for us. So it's a way that we got to get the younger generation involved, maybe not in the military, but let them know what the military has done for this country. And I get to go to the schools once a year and talk to the kids on Veterans Week. And the first thing I tell them, you don't have to be in the military. This is your country, our country. Do something good every day. If it ain't more than just picking a piece of paper off the sidewalk, making our country a little bit better, do something every day and make it better. Things ain't perfect, never will be perfect, but just try to make it a little bit better every day. Kids like to ask you questions, and some of the questions sometimes are, you have to realize the age group, and you have to watch how you answer them too. But they're interested, they're caring, and the area I live in, it seems like the kids are more caring about it. Last week we went over to Garden City High School for a football game. They invited the veterans over there, and they had a nice little ceremony. We marched out on the field with our uniforms, those who had them. Those that didn't just marched out with us. We carried the American flag, and we had 2 rifles for our honor guard, and we had 3 rifles for the firing squad. They introduced us, and the people stand up and start clapping. You just hear the way it ain't just clap, it's loud. It's a feeling that them people up there care about you. And it makes you proud that you were a veteran. And then we generally have our firing squad, and the band will play taps with the echo, which is really nice. And we march off the field. As we're marching off, everybody in that stand is standing and clapping their hands. So I feel the younger generation is starting to change from whenever I first got out of the service anyway. Some of the veterans, they won't talk about what they did, but some of them are still suffering. They had to do things that they didn't want to do, and it's in their minds. And some of them gentlemen, some of the stuff they went through, and I've talked to some of them, and a veteran understands a veteran better than a civilian. But they have trouble. They have a hard time with that. So don't just condemn them because they won't talk about it, because it's hard for them to even speak about some of the stuff they did. I didn't have to do Vietnam. I was close, but I didn't have to go, so I thank God every day that I didn't have to kill somebody, because that would probably be living in my mind right now too if I was one of them gentlemen. I got another thing in my life that really happened to me. It really made me swell with pride. I couldn't express how I felt. I got to be picked out to be Butler County Veteran of the Year. What a honor. Being a parade in Butler, and they had a big dinner, and I got to visit some. Well, the biggest thing that year was the wall. The Vietnam Wall come to Butler, and I got to speak at it one night, and I was really proud to be able to do that. It was a feeling, and I had a feeling that I couldn't even describe to you how I felt. I was just about ready to cry a couple of times because I had some friends that I lost over there. So it's even a little bit not as hard for me as some of the gentlemen was over there, but it's still hard for me.